Recording in progress.
I can't get it out of my head about Egypt, so I feel like that's where I'm going to start.
Sure.
So, why did you study Egypt for? How long did you study it for, and then why?
I studied it for 3 years. Why'd I do it? Basically, I wasn't sure if I wanted to study anything after I finished what you would call high school. And I had a year where I didn't go to school and I mostly studied things by myself. I would read books and try to learn languages and basically educate myself a bit about the world. And I think Egypt and I guess ancient civilizations at large was a topic that I was pulled toward for some reason. And the opportunity to study that formally, to potentially do something with that professionally was attractive to me. But from the very start, I wasn't convinced that I would actually do something professionally with it. But I was happy to kind of get a degree in something that I'm genuinely very interested in. And I basically looked at university courses because my brother tried to convince me to do one because he was like, "You have this degree, just like do something with it. It's good for your development as a person as well." And this was the only one that honestly spoke to me of the ones that I was able to do with the background that I had from high school because we kind of have to choose a direction when we're
Hmm.
14, 15. So it limits you in terms of your options. But I had history in my I would how you'd call that my subjects, let's say, in high school. So
Yeah,
that's how I ended up there.
the ancient civilization idea is super fascinating. Have you encountered any of Graham Hancock's work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I really was enjoying his Netflix show that there's
Hmm.
2 seasons out. Uh, I just think it's so fascinating. It's an interesting field, history, just because it is sort of, I don't know, it's sort of like open to interpretation or even to more research, and so we talk about things, sort of in a settled or
Yeah.
certain way. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are people like you that are getting their degrees and going into these fields and either discovering something new, seeing something a different way, and uh, it's just fascinating. You can keep turning the stories over and over, even with no new evidence.
Yeah. And history is it's stories. It's what it's in the name, really. Like
Mm.
in in Spanish, if you would talk about history, it's the same word as you would talk about story. So, and going into the philosophy of science, every way of telling history is a story. So it's going to be influenced by the way we prefer to tell that story. And then we base our history on the history that was written by the people all those years ago, if we're going off of, written records. And, rulers have a tendency to erase what came before them or to kind of use propaganda to make their names bigger. So
Yeah,
we get a very limited view of any bit of history, but
yeah,
Egypt is, especially is a difficult, limited one, to say the least. Yeah.
yeah. So can you read hieroglyphics then?
I can read it if you give me time. Like, if you give me time, if you give me a pen, if you give me a dictionary on top of that, they give you the grammar. They give you the keys to be able to decipher them. But going up to a stone and reading it in full comprehension would be difficult. Maybe I would get like 60 or 70%. Uh,
Yeah,
that's honestly most of the degree is doing that, which is
really.
yeah, I did not expect that. I didn't look at the curriculum at all. And you find out it's most of your credits is reading hieroglyphics, different forms of Egyptian, meaning that you have Middle Egyptian, Old Egyptian, New Egyptian in a similar way that you could have Old and Modern English. So if you would be a New Egyptian speaker and you would look at Old Egyptian, assuming that you could read They would look a lot different than the Egyptian you would read on your papyrus, because there's 3,000 years
Yeah.
of Egyptian kingdom. So it changed a lot throughout those times, and we had to get accustomed to different grammars and also different types of scripts. Because you have the formal hieroglyphics, right, in the pictographic way, but you also have cursive, uh, which is also called hieratic, which is basically people's with the doctor's handwriting,
Yeah.
replicating those signs, and you have to learn um, kind of the cursive version of those hieroglyphics as well, but not in a extreme detail,
Mm.
because that stuff it could take you decades,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah,
Yeah. I can't remember the guy's name, but I was thinking of Lex Friedman had this guy that is, I think he is a Mayan history guy, like
sure.
the leader expert in that, and he read some stuff and whatever. I don't know. He might have set himself up for the show. You know, it's like a big
Yeah,
show to go on and read. But I was like, I can't believe anybody can read this.
yeah,
In one of the National Treasure movies, the guy's mom, she's that person, the Mayan expert, and she just reads it off the thing. But these are
sure.
these are deeply difficult languages. Even like Wes Huff is always talking about how
Yeah.
difficult Sumerian is to read, to understand.
Mm.
It's so crazy because I don't know. So just connecting some of the things that I've laid out here, like it's so difficult to read the actual things that we have, the artifacts, and then on top of that, to put yourself in there, like the language is somehow the key to getting into what is the context here, but then from there you also have like the difficulty of uh, or sorry, I was thinking of the Graham Hancock thing. So the time that it takes for a civilization to develop and then to sort of like undevelop, like go away or be lost to
Yeah.
history is really fascinating because you see the difficulty that we're having in grasping these things. They're slipping away from us. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden we're like, no, for sure, 100% we know when civilization started, how it happened, and that Graham Hancock is wrong. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how you could.
Yeah, no, we don't know much. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's the famous Plato quote, the more you know, the less. The more you know, the less you know, or something.
Mm.
The more you're aware of that you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Especially in those types of fields. I don't know why there's a tendency toward arrogance or thinking that you know, but I didn't see that much in my professors, to be fair to them. They
Mm.
were quite open people, and I was able to speak about some of these types of theories, not in great detail with them, and they wouldn't. Because, Graham paints it as if archaeology is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
devil or something like
Yes.
that. Archaeology is a field, and you have some bad apples there, but there's lovely people in there. It's just sometimes paradigms get, ossified, and they need rejuvenating, and that's also what's happening at the moment. So
Yeah.
it's it's time for I think, a new way of viewing history. It is true that a lot of stuff is piling up where we have to kind of revisit our idea of when does civilization start, what makes something of a civilization, especially. I think the biggest one is Göbekli Tepe, which is, 12,000 years old and shows signs of sophistication that we did not think were possible.
Yeah.
Did you just hear my thing beep or no?
No, I heard your
No, good.
chair, but no beeping.
Okay, okay, good.
Um,
Let me close this off.
I lost my train of thought. I was, oh, I can't remember what I was listening to. Maybe Brett Weinstein or something like that. But basically, it's so interesting that we have these. You just mentioned certainty. So one thing I admire about you, and I've watched more episodes of your podcast than I expect that you've watched of mine. So I have a feel for the way that you think about things, different conversations that you've had, and your openness is admirable. I don't know how open you are like in, we haven't met in person, but just
Yeah.
in conversation, that's such a huge skill, even if it isn't your personality. But I think it is for you.
Mm,
So openness
mm,
leads you to say, we don't know a lot. Like that sentence
yeah.
is so powerful. And
Mm,
uh, yeah, I mean, I guess we can move in that direction. I'm thinking like, so I found you through this flotilla, right, of
mm,
the TLC channels,
mm,
um, and so I just found them like a month ago. But I've been following Jordan Peterson, he's sort of on this revivification thing. At least for years, that was the case, and that happened to me. I got revivified in my life through some of his content, and then Jesus. I followed him, not online, and then like Vervaeke and all. So there's lots of this sort of these institutions and ways of being in the world that have become ossified, and so there is this revitalization that's happening. Um,
yeah.
anyway, so how did you come to the TLC, and maybe uh, how does your openness play into that?
Yeah, sure. I think it started for me as well with Jordan. This was when I was 18 or so, 19. Mostly through my brother. He was very interested in Jordan Peterson and kind of made me aware that that was someone important to listen to as a figure that could show the value of the Bible. Because I think at that age, quick to say Christianity is not a good thing and not good for the world. I would say I connected a lot with spirituality, but I did not see in any way that religion was necessary for that dimension. And my brother has always kind of been a devil's advocate of some sorts in my life, someone a beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
how do you say that? Adversary,
Yes.
a good adversary of mine. Same with the university thing, right? I didn't want to go to school, and he said, "Oh, maybe you learned something there, and maybe will be good for you." And Jordan Peterson was a similar thing where he got me onto that biblical series, and also the self-help kind of angle helped me because I wasn't, uh, well, I was very much invested into that part of the internet at the
Mm.
time, so that was an easy slide in. But I also had that religious or spiritual interest, and so that's kind of how it started. Now, my brother personally was already talking to Paul Vanderklay, who is kind of the godfather of the This Little Corner. I'm not sure if people are familiar what This Little Corner actually is, but Paul Vanderklay basically popularized that as a initially a Jordan Peterson commentary channel type of thing. So that was years ago. Him, my father, and Paul, they spoke on an episode, and so I was always aware of kind of the community around people that listen to Jordan Peterson or John Vervaeke or Jonathan Peugeot. And it wasn't until I think Paul came to the Netherlands that I decided to kind of meet up with him and a group of people. And I met him in person, and that's when I kind of started following his stuff and get a bit more involved in the community. Um, I still wouldn't say I'm really inside of the TLC as much as a lot of people are. Like, I don't do a lot of live streams or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not so much in it. Like I have a couple of friends that I just know that are active in that, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of on the outskirts and I look outward as well. I think similarly with faith, I feel like my work is outside of the church, less than inside of the church. That's
Mm.
always been more my calling. The world has
Yeah.
always been more my calling. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And that's
Um,
how openness, I guess, ties into it a little bit as well.
yeah.
Openness to ideas and then openness to reach out. Like I want to get out of the known territory. I want to talk to people that are different artists and people that have different religions and upbringings and such.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know Daniel Garner, OG
Yeah,
Rose? Yeah,
yeah.
he's been around. So uh, he he started something, and I still haven't like tracked down the facts about it, but like a church or a ministry of some sort when he was younger or years ago, and he said that their goal was to minister to the people that they felt the church as it was constructed was missing, and he listed the intellectual, the sexually broken, and the artist. And I felt like when you just said the world, that's what triggers in my mind. Like we live in a hyper intellectual culture. At least a portion of it is that, maybe not broadly, but everything is informational. We want, more and more detail and explanation and information. And then uh, artists, I mean, artists are they're hard to incorporate into any community. So this is not like a criticism in the negative sense of the church. It is a criticism, like, hey, I don't think we're doing this. But then the sexually broken, I think that's something that the church does sort of recognize and then fight over how to handle the incorporation, like bringing into the body of these people. And so, anyway, yeah, he just said some really cool stuff on I think it was Ken's channel, but whatever. Enough with
Yeah.
the TLC. We have our own channels. No. But so it's like I think that it's so important for us to be open and be at least 1 foot in with the church. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
I don't think that he's wrong about it. Like those are just three to name three. I feel like there's probably even more categories. Those were just the ones they felt were important to focus on and invite into some sort of space. And yeah, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
you about your dad. You can say anything you think about what I just said, but I was gonna ask you
Yeah,
about your
sure.
dad and the your feelings about being working in the church or out of the church. I didn't know if that was connected.
Yeah, it is. And to respond, oh, something's falling. No worries. To respond to what you said just now, having that foot inside of the church, or at least connected to something stable, something that pins you down in some way, that grounds you, that gets you involved with your community, that's, I think, so essential for very open people, including myself. I think that's kind of where Jordan Peterson, where I worry about him, or have worried about him, where I think you don't have a mechanism to kind of keep you rooted. Like I think he started flying off somewhere, um, even though he was the biggest advocate for, tying yourself down to something.
Hmm.
He really made me realize, like, if you think something applies generally, apply it to yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Like you don't get away with this and this and this, then like if people don't get away with it, you're not going to get away with it either. And I think he kind of danced for too long in the in-between space of spirituality and religion.
Mm.
Just to respond to what you said before, then moving on to my father.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. My question was just you were saying that you think that your work has and maybe like a calling or something has been more towards the world than to the
Yeah.
church, and that's such an interesting even sort of dualism there of like but I think that's the way that it works. Like parts of the body do different things, so there are outward and there are inward works.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
didn't know if that was related to your dad, who I know has studied the Bible for a very long time. I don't know
Yeah.
his whole story, but just that that's a part of your life.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that ties into my dad, or I think he definitely had a big influence on my religious conviction. Like we went through the New Testament together. He made me, it was with him discussing all that stuff that it started to click for me. But I think through getting it that way, like after having done psychedelics and kind of seeing what's behind Christianity, or what it's pointing toward a little bit at least. I'm not claiming to know God or any nonsense like that, but having a sense of that limitless spirituality, and my dad being able to transmit that from a Christian point of view to me, I think has allowed me to kind of want to go more outward, to want to help more people, to want to kind of carry the light in some way.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's indeed not exactly a dualism. It's not like the church is not the world. It's inside of the world, but the church is this concentrated place of holiness and worship, I feel. And and I think I'm just in a position at the moment with my age and with my openness and the way that I connect to people and different types of people that there's just a lot more work for me to be done
Yeah.
uh, in the outside world. Yeah, I would say. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna rely on our shared understanding of Jonathan Pageau, but he
Sure.
he he constantly talks about how everything in everywhere, like the entire universe, is just trying to tell you how uh, how the many become one, like the plurality and the singularity, and the image that he uses for some of that is a seed, and the seed is a very complex image, but it's always been used throughout all of time, and he pulls it out of every single Bible story that you could ever imagine. You're like, there's no seeds in this one. He can find it. So anyway, it's something that he talks about because it's it's like archetypal. It's so true across all time and circumstances. And to me, it feels like with uh, the seed has, like, when it falls in the ground and dies, it has the outward pattern of growth because, like, it has all of its necessary components contained within it in a condensed form. But then as it begins to come alive, then it moves outward into the world. So even it's in the ground and it moves above the ground. It's underneath the other trees. It moves above the trees. Like
Yeah,
these
beautiful.
movements are sort of the fruit of something. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I went to the gym this morning. I listened to you talk to your dad for a little bit, and he mentioned, like, he just does a lot of stuff, and I know lots of different people that do that, and I think they're always the coolest people. And that might be, I
Yeah.
might just be like them, that might be all
Yeah.
that is. But uh, the the more free you are to just sort of be who you are and do lots of different things, I think affords you the ability to grow in the same way. So anyway, this is kind of getting convoluted, but like the the impetus in you to move outward, I think you could even see it as like a biological thing between you and your dad
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
these are things that he's worked on for years and even like planted seeds in you. That's a common Christian expression that
Yeah.
are directing you outward because I feel the same way. Like I was raised in a Christian home and
Hmm.
it didn't stick. And I distinctly remember having a psychedelic experience where I was crying because my parents would never know about this. Like I just knew
Yeah.
that they would never do this and they would never know the goodness and beauty of this thing. And well, not even the thing, but like whatever, the spiritual stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
And uh but then since then, like that was at a point in my life, and then there was a giant valley of like other much worse drugs and addiction,
Okay.
and then and like I wasn't on the street or anything, but just my life was sort of falling apart, very depressed. And
Yeah.
then COVID happened, moved back to my parents, and I was like, wait a second, I think I don't know what's going on, and
Yeah.
they had a much better grip on what was important, and so I flipped that and began to experience like, okay, I see, like you said, it's like this portal. It's just relationship with God, and the other version of that was beautiful, but very mechanistic. It felt like
Mm.
I was trying to capture something. So
Yeah, and also the way you speak about it in terms of like they will never have this experience, meaning the experience you have with the psychedelic, right? Uh, Thereby absolutizing the substance
yeah, yeah,
and prioritizing the substance over the experience, whereas who's to say that experience you had otherwise?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that's like a really good I don't know, sort of monks of all traditions, I think, would say something like that. Like you can have this experience in all things. Anyway,
Ever see that video of that monk get given LSD by these Western people, like it's a Tibetan monk or something, and they give him LSD, and he's so unimpressed. He's like, "My life is meditation. What are you, what
Yeah.
are you talking about?" Like he
Yeah.
just thinks he's not impressed at all. He's just sitting there like nothing.
Everything
This
gets
is
duller and
yeah.
less colors. Yeah. That's great. Um, yeah. So for you, maybe I'm interested in what your journey back to Christianity is, because I heard that you're Catholic. Are you still Catholic?
Becoming Catholic, yeah,
Becoming Catholic.
it's a long process. Yeah, it's a long
Catechesis.
process. All this stuff, sacraments,
Yeah.
the good fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, the journey back there is long. It's but I would say organic in the way that things that last are, so
Mm.
not rushed or pushed or forced.
Yeah.
So I was raised in a Christian household like yourself. I think I never really discounted or didn't entertain the possibility of God, but there was a period that I was far from God in action and in thought and in every way in my being. And I think that I started to kind of open that door back up when I kind of stopped partying and drinking so much and got into the self-help stuff that I
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit before. That all came with like meditation as well, because
Mm.
that was one of the things people recommend. Like, oh, successful people do meditation.
Yeah.
So I started doing meditation and started to, I don't know, experience little things like just profound joy and visual type of experience. Nothing too psychedelic, but notable experiences and then writing about them and kind of, you know, feeling the depths of life a little bit more. I started reading books and finding presence, I guess. Learning about Chinese philosophy, learning about different types of traditions, and I had this yearning to kind of become a monk for a little bit. I don't know where that came from exactly. And I remember very distinctly telling my brother about this, that I was kind of attracted by this idea of just going to Asia and becoming a monk. And he was like, well, why not just become a monk here? And I was like, well, that's kind of lame. It's kind of, it's Christian monk. Sounds so stupid. Like they shave their head weird and
Yeah.
the colors are ugly. And, and he's like, well, you're just doing something he told me where you're interested by the exotic. But
Mm.
you don't realize that everything you need is right here.
Mm.
That got me thinking. That was the first time I was like, oh, I'm actually fooling myself on this. So that planted a seed to come back to your story from before. And then yeah, I had a psychedelic experience that, you know, opened me up to everything. But a sense of grounding was there as well. Grounding in the faith that love rules reality. That was very clear for me.
Mm.
That was really like, um, I no longer fear death, or I didn't at that moment. I don't know how I feel about it now, but I really didn't at that moment. And I really trust. I've trusted since that moment that love rules reality, and I think the Christian tradition kind of aligns with that in many ways. And then after I got out of that experience, uh, my father got his PhD on a text, Gospel of Philip, which is a Gnostic Christian text, basically. But it's profoundly similar to what I experienced in doing ayahuasca, where he was reading me those lines, what's in the gospel. I We did a episode on this, going through the lines as well. So if anyone's interested, I can send you that link.
Yeah.
But it was just I had to cry reading all of that stuff because I deeply realized these people had the same experience, at a completely different time and place, and there's something universal to this story that we're in. And then I was like, okay, let's with this new open look go through the Bible. Let's do the New Testament specifically, and we started doing that, And by the end of it, I just had a moment. I remember it distinctly. I was at home and I was training, and something clicked, which I could put it into words, but sometimes you need to hear something 74 times or something
Yeah.
before you're like, oh, this is real, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, that are really into podcasts and stuff like that don't do that often. They don't integrate as much. They just listen.
Mm.
They listen, listen, listen. I did that. I listen, I listen, I listen. But I never realized the gravity of things. And then when I really started to think about believing that Jesus, you know, is, I have to say this, believing that following Jesus is the highest thing that I can do. I think that was the biggest realization.
Mm.
I think that was a moment where I was like, okay, now I can go back. But it wasn't until 5 years after that I'm actually joining a church proper. Because that's a whole different game. Like
Yeah.
that's a different.
Yeah.
It's one thing to know that I'm okay following Christ. Like that's something that I'm at rest with. But then to see what tradition to do that through, um, if any, you've spoken to Ken. I don't think Ken goes to church.
Hmm.
Um, we have Orthodox people, we have Protestants, we have Baptists, we have everything. We have people in different religions, which I'm also not a Christianity, and that's the only thing that goes. Though I do think there's something profound in the coming of Christ, but yeah, it was only years after that I could find a tradition that worked out because then you have the whole well practical side of things, but also where do you feel at home spiritually? And I
Yeah.
think I now finally feel that I've found that in the church that is right around the corner here, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can speak more about that specifically, but let me know what you would
Yeah.
like to do.
Yeah. Actually, that's where I was gonna prompt you. I'm looking for a quote while while you tell me more about your
Sure.
community. I guess I want to frame it that way. Like my interest is who are the people that you've connected with in this community, or is it primarily the tradition? Because uh, I'm in a similar place as Ken of except for you, I think there was a little space where it was your belief was in Jesus and you were able to sort of exist outside of that. But the story that God gave me is that I had a profound sense of like debt to him that I needed to do something for him. And so I moved into an opportunity that I had that was a mission trip. So it was like three different things, and they're pretty closely tied with an evangelical non-denominational group. And so I moved into that, and then kind of was like fast track to becoming a pastor in that. And it's I think primarily, I don't know. I think that I am a teacher. I think that like I don't know about spiritually gifted or whatever, but just like I like to teach people things.
Yeah.
And then uh, I think that I can public speak. And so those two things are like automatic. This guy's a pastor. And so
Yes.
it was very quick, and it was, I don't want to say too quick, but there are verses in the Bible about that. So maybe. And
Sure.
I now am outside of that. And I have very good relationships with all of the people that were a part of that. I think pretty good, and but now I'm in this difficult sort of desert space as far as the tradition or the practicalities of this faith in Jesus. And okay, I want to ask about your Catholic community, but I for me it's like I'm in this place of I am profoundly convinced that the primary aspects of following Jesus, being a follower of him and his way, are largely ignored in many traditional spaces. So it's like very difficult then to commit to a way of life that I think is almost, I just want to say like irrelevant or unnecessary. And I know those are very harsh words. And I don't mean to dismiss the values of these traditions or like the value that they have, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for sharing.
the community I think is the thing that I long for the most in
Mm.
this outside space of my journey, you know?
Yeah, sure. So I think that Catholicism called me partially because I still believe to in kind of unity of some sorts in a way that we can sit at the same table as as Christians, as people of the world, really. And I had a conversation with David Schindler, who's someone that I greatly admire. I've had the privilege of speaking to him multiple times. He's been very gracious to me, and he's one of the few people that I really look up to. Um, and he's inside of Catholicism, and we had a conversation about what church is, really. And I can't answer that in 2 sentences, or I don't know at all.
Hmm.
But that conversation changed me. It kind of removed my last barriers that I had of joining. Um, I don't see the Catholic Church as something absolute. That's the
Mm.
path. But I could see that it could work for me because I want to move toward the center in my life. At this stage of my life, I was very far from the center years ago, for better and for worse. Sometimes it's good to look at things from a different perspective. But now with the work that I do, I work in education with the life that I live. The I have a lot of connections now. I've been in this city for years now, and now I feel really grounded inside of it. So you start to get to know people in the neighborhood. You know, I play football in a neighborhood, and now I have this church in a neighborhood, and it's very important. I feel that I worship something higher with the people around me because that binds you in a way that's unparalleled. It allows you to see that there's a sense of home and belonging in physical space, but also in, churches around the world where people can come here and they're used to Catholic Church, for example, and they'll get it right away and they can just join. And so that beauty really calls me of sitting in church international as well. So we have people really from all over, uh, and feeling like, brothers and sisters. And that's something that I just think is very hard to get in the other churches in my surroundings at least.
Hmm.
So we do have other churches, like we have Protestant churches, like specifically the Dutch ones. You will get less of that plurality or really universality, feeling of that. And we have Orthodox churches, but they're very almost ethnically based, where we have an Egyptian one and there's like 99% Egyptians and they speak Arabic. It's like, how am I gonna,
Hmm.
that's not gonna work out for me. Um, but yeah, this feels profound. And then on top of that, I just had a good feeling with it. I spoke to the priest and I had a deep faith conversation, and I could really see eye to eye to him with
Hmm.
him on a lot of things. But ultimately, I think you're never gonna fully agree with the church or a tradition.
Yeah.
I think there's a necessity to kind of let go of that critical part of your brain when it no longer serves you. You shouldn't get yourself into a cult, but
Yeah.
for certain things it's useful, like get yourself out of trouble. But I think there were too many green lights to say, ah, well, because of this, I will not join. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's actually sorry, just wanted to pick up there. That's actually a really good point about I think I don't know how much you know about like the left brain, right brain stuff that is
yeah,
on the internet, but it
yeah,
is wild. There's a guy, I think his name's Alan Shore. He did Huberman's podcast and he listed off the number of things that the right brain is responsible for, predominantly because they're mostly lateralized in
sure,
most cases. But it's basically like art and music and poetry and then down to things like compassion and love and empathy. And so there's a relational component the to the right brain that is missing. And I'm only like, 100 pages into any of Ian McGilchrist's books. They're very big, but the desire to know that is there. It's deep in me. I'm like, this is so incredible that it's
Yeah.
actually how we work. And so when you talk about a tradition and the need to sort of leave that rational part of your mind at the door, I think that our our modern expressions of what it means to follow Jesus as a gathering or as the called out ones is like, it's very interesting to think of. I've been working through Leslie Newbegin and even James Filler, substance ontology versus relational ontology, and all of these things point to the current construction, and I'll just say in general, is sort of a substance ontological view of Christianity. I mean, this is why,
Yeah.
Christianity has a ton of interest in archaeology and all of these things, because it's like, what can we rationally make certain so that people have this rational foundation and then they can build their faith on that. But you're saying like sort of this entrance in requires a bit of a like a flow state, or like a you need to abandon that procedural part of your brain that's going through the rational propositions, I guess, and then it allows you to have. It's so funny because
Yeah.
the people that struggle with this the most will tell you that it is a relationship, not a religion, and
Yeah.
yet like it's not a relationship with a fact. It's a relationship with a person, with the people around
Yeah.
you. Anyway, the right brain as necessary for like spiritual community is, I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. I love Ian McGilchrist's work.
Yeah.
It's been very impactful on me. I think he's one of the few people that I'll read, and even though his books are so long, there's just such power and uh, depth in every page.
Every time
There's a reason they're long,
Yes,
you know?
every time he's on a podcast, I listen to the 2 hours or whatever it is, and I'm just so disappointed. Like, I needed
Yeah,
this guy to talk to me for 3 years, and then
yeah,
maybe I'll be satisfied. I don't think so, but
yeah. No, exactly. We'll never be satisfied.
yes.
But yeah, you're right. It requires a certain leap. It requires a sacrifice, really.
Hmm.
Largely the ego, I think,
Hmm.
or a part of it. The part of me that cringes when I'm in a church service, or the part of me that kind of thinks I know better, or this and this and this. And in reality, I think I will always have issues or left hemispheric things that will kind of bubble underneath the surface. And then I realize that, you know, I want to sit at the table with my brothers and sisters, just as I do with my actual brothers and sisters. And then there's just certain things that you have to accept of each other and the differences you have. And, maybe you don't exactly agree with the way your parents uh, do things in their house, but it's a house worth being in, and it's a table worth sitting at. So I just wish we could sit at that same table, all of us, and that's kind of largely my motivation in this next adventure
Hmm.
to create a center and to be in it and to work from it, as I spoke to you, as I said before, a center that grounds you, that keeps you, and then you can move to the periphery and kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
see the treasure that's there as well.
Keeping with the seed metaphor, it sounds a lot like Jesus describing himself as the vine and us as the branches. Like, I think that that is something I've been seeing for a while too. You mentioned self help, and I that was kind of my track too. Not really. I just needed any help, and I wasn't really looking in spiritual places. And then
Sure.
I was like for me, I couldn't do 10 push-ups,
Mm.
so I was like, well, that's probably a good place to start. And it's totally
Yeah.
irrelevant to most things in my life, but in actuality, like I think there are some deep psychological things that fixed in me when I developed the capacity to do,
Yeah.
many more than 10. And
Yeah.
but that was very Petersonian. Like the initial steps to improving myself were so embarrassing that it was difficult to even begin. But that's where I started. So like I found Peterson after the fact because I was listening to Rogan, and then Tim Kennedy gets on there and he's like, you should be in the army and do a lot of pull-ups and jujitsu and whatever. And then Jocko Willing's on there. He's like, just wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Who cares? Nobody cares. And that sort of stuff was good for a time and for a reason, but there's more to life than that. And so I think like this journey of self-improvement for me, well, first of all, it's not about myself. It's sort of like universal. Like I get
Yeah.
to be a point of this improvement that is the kingdom of God. But in my transformation, that's really what I'm saying when I say self improvement. Like, I was transformed, and in that, I think a lot of who I actually am has been allowed to come out and be set free or to grow like the seed, right? And
Yeah.
so with that, modern wisdom. I'm rapping, wearing the shirt. He Chris Williamson has such a good bead on that. That's like his thing that he offers everyone. And he gets into all the whatever like biohacking and psychology and therapy and I think for me it's like all of those things have some value. You don't have to say they are ultimate in value, but they're all different angles on this problem of like life and how to do it well. And I think that's the thing that I wish I could pull out of all of the frameworks and matrices that it is in the self-help community is like you are good and yet you're not like free to be who you are. And so there's this version of like self-acceptance. That's a good thing, but it's like it can actually impact your ability to be present, be in the world. And yeah, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what you said that sparked that thought, but I do think
Yeah.
that that's a huge part of maybe what I feel like is missing in church communities because obviously it's all about Christ and him within us and we want more of him in everyone that is centered around him. And yes and amen, like no problems there, but I think that somehow we confuse that with like grinding people down into the model that we have in our head of like what a Christian is supposed to be like or what a Catholic,
Yeah.
then you get into all the different models. It's like what an Egyptian Orthodox, what a,
Yeah.
non-denominational Protestant is supposed to look like. It's like
Sure.
that those things we should leave aside. Don't bother with that. You
Yeah.
mentioned eating a meal, and I thought of your series that you're doing, talking through the work your dad's been doing on the New Testament, and I think the image of Paul sitting down at the table and keeping a Gentile and a Jew with him at the table, ruining the church's traditional, Orthodox plan here. Like, well, this is
Yeah.
what we decided we're going to do. He ruins it in a very real sort of way. Like, no, these are the people that I eat with, and they sit with me when I eat my food, and
Yeah.
it's that is the perfect example of what I'm trying to express. Is like there's nothing in the food, and there's nothing in the ethnicity, and there's nothing in the practical that bars us from having that experience. And so, even if it had gone the other way, I think Paul would have uh, participated in meals, elsewhere or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that is the thing that he's going to do.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it's possible. Your analogy with your parents, the parents, and a kid. It's
Yeah.
like you don't do everything the same way, but you do the things that they expect when you're there. Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this, or we're going to do these traditions. So anyway,
Yeah. It's a sense of like submission or at least sacrificing something so that we can be together and we can be unified to a degree, like, excuse me, to a degree that I think a lot of people are unwilling to do nowadays. And I mean, especially in your country, people are getting, ripped apart, communities, families, for differences in a culture that tries to kind of divinize difference. It tries to prioritize it over everything else. And before you know it, it's the thing that rips us apart. So my big realization has been I want to see what we have in common
Mm-hmm.
and finding out that there's a lot more than you might expect. And then to find out that difference starts to shine through that. It starts to come up in a much more beautiful way when it's not the thing that you're leading off with, where it's not your first principle, it's not your highest thing in your hierarchy of values.
Mm.
And that's kind of yourself because you are unique and you are different than anybody else and everybody else. So when you put yourself at that top of the hierarchy of values, which often happens with people that are deep into the self-help culture, you won't be able to sit at a lot of tables, or you won't want to. So there's a sacrifice that needs to happen, and then there's a shining of your own multiplicity that follows shortly after, because you become a beautiful part in a whole that's unified. That's magnificent. It's just wonderful. So that's kind of where I'm at with that stuff.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
don't forget yourself. A lot of people forget themselves. That's what my wife, we've had conversations about this. She's like, "Well, I don't like the person that sacrifices themselves fully and forgets about themselves." Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an importance to that as well because there's a reason we did that episode yesterday or the day before, I don't remember, about this. You were talking about sitting at the table, Paul, and the Gentile and the Jew, and what came forth in that gospel or in that Bible book, I think it was James or Galatians, was that the most important, um, what you call commandment,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a commandment, is love yourself as you love your neighbor, or love thy neighbor as you love thyself.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to love yourself. So I think there's a sin on both sides. There's a sin of loving yourself too much, and there's a sin of loving your neighbor over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that there's yourself in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's interesting. I never saw it as, yeah. It almost makes like a hierarchy there of like equal between yourself and your neighbor because the first commandment is love God. And so then
yes,
off of that there comes the structure. That's
exactly.
that's really cool. Yeah, that's making me think of right now Anthony DeMello. Have you read anything of his?
No, but the name rings familiar.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss actually constantly recommends his books.
Ah, yeah,
He
of
helped him
course.
with Tim's depression, but
Yeah.
he he has a book called The Way of Love, and we did an episode on this chapter actually on my channel. But there's this one chapter about loving one another and the way that love is to be given freely, unrequited, like it's the sun shining or a tree giving shade. Like this is just the way that the tree is. It doesn't change for you, but because you're there, you get to enjoy the love that is naturally shining off of it. And there's a really really good passage towards the end of that chapter that talks about the way that you allow yourself to be mistreated in sort of a people pleasing way, like uh, when you submit yourself to other people's expectations to keep their opinion of you at a certain place or to keep the relationship okay, you actually submit them to that same transactional relationship. And so it's a very strange reversal, but it's really great. I think it's profound because it relocates the agency with you. So in all of these difficult situations you have with other people, you're like, oh, this person always expects this of me. You have the agency to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And then the ball is back in their court, but you had the ball and you did what you wanted to do with it. It's like that is so key because I don't know. I know that I have struggled with that, not really in like a Christian way. I think my wife has struggled a little bit more with like some Christian teaching around being nice to people and sort of submitting yourself to them. Uh, but it just is the it's so profound to me that it's actually something bad that I'm doing to them, rather than vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
I had that quote. So have you read anything by Dallas Willard?
No, but Karen, I think Karen Wong always speaks about. Is it
Okay.
a woman, Dallas Willard, or is it a
No, a
man?
man.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Um,
I've heard Karen all the time.
yeah.
She'll pull up a quote too.
Do you know John Mark Comer?
No,
Okay. He wrote a few popular books. They're in Walmarts in America. Which is usually a bad sign, but I think he's like one of the good ones. He actually made it through to the outside world with
sure.
coherent truth. But he basically just interprets Dallas Willard. Willard is very clear but very thorough, so the books are big. But then Comer is very clear and
Uh,
less thorough, and so
uh,
they sell in Walmart. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
fair enough.
and so I just read the introduction, and this book changed my life. So I have an affinity for it. But it's the introduction to the Divine Conspiracy, and I'm not even kidding. Like you could just give the introduction to people, and they'd be like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And
Yeah.
it's just the introduction. So anyway, I had a quote from there. Um, I think it was when you were talking about love is the reality. Like you had that insight.
Mm.
Love is the reality that rules the world, and so that's what made me think of it. He says the life and words that Jesus brought into the world came in the form of information and reality. He and his early associates overwhelmed the ancient world because they brought into it a stream of life at its deepest, along with the best information possible on the most important matters. These were matters with which the human mind had already been seriously struggling for a millennium or more without much success. The early message was, accordingly, not experienced as not experienced as something its hearers had to believe or do, because otherwise something bad, something with no essential connection to real life, would happen to them. The people initially impacted by the message generally concluded that they would be fools to disregard it. That was the basis of their conversion. Uh, and then later he says, it is the failure to understand Jesus and his words as reality and vital information about life that explains why today we do not routinely teach those who profess allegiance to him how to do what he said was best. We lead them to profess allegiance to him, or we expect them to, and leave them there, devoting our remaining efforts to attracting them to this or that.
That's powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Please send me the introduction if you have it,
Yeah, I
or
will.
I'll look it up after.
Hmm.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Willard. So, okay, so just to maybe lay a little bit more down here of what I connected with, it's like Willard made me see what he said in that one sentence. It is the failure to understand Jesus and his words as reality and vital information about life. That is what he communicated to me through the Divine Conspiracy, and I I mean it's been 5 years of following Jesus. Yeah, almost a little bit more, like close to six, 5.5, and I'm like I'm still stuck on that. Like Jesus is reality, love is reality. God is love, is what John says, and yeah, there are so many. I mean, reality, right? It's so fundamental that literally everything is connected to that, and so then uh, how I live, what I think, the purpose of me, the relationships I have, how to have those relationships, everything is connected to this thought, but it's something, it's less of a thought and more of a lesson. Like I'm constantly learning this. And uh yeah, I mean, I think that the conversations that interest me are with people like yourself that see beyond the thing, right? Like whatever it is, there's an end to it. And
Mm.
so when it comes to a tradition or a group of people or a conversation, a word, all of these things have a vector, right?
Mm.
They're going somewhere. And so where is it that we're going? I don't know uh, precisely, but I do know like we might want to try to tinker with the things because you can do that, right? So seeing the world as possibility rather
Mm.
than certainty, I think is that those are the things that I want to offer the conversation because like
Yeah.
on the big five personality traits, I'm like 97 openness, and that's my biggest one. So that's just the way
Yeah.
that it is, and that makes it very difficult for me to participate in things that are traditional. I think
Yeah.
because I don't
Yeah, I
want to learn how
understand.
to be more traditional per se. Like I do want to grow into the image of Jesus, and I do want to glean from that process, but to conform is very difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult. It's a sacrifice, but especially if you're that open.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to realize that you might not be sacrificing as much as you think,
Hmm.
and you might be sacrificing more by not committing, let's say, if you would understand submitting to a tradition as a type of freedom, because that's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
I see it as, well, freedom is not options, right? Freedom is so much more than that. Not, again, something that I can capture in a sentence, but freedom is given to you. Imagine getting into a car or something. You get given the freedom to drive, something like that.
Hmm.
Getting into a tradition, it gives you a type of freedom to I guess, feel and experience religion from a perspective that you would never reach if you weren't inside of the car. Like you will, if you stay outside of the car, you're always going to be constrained because you don't you don't get the keys, you don't get the real treasure of the tradition, I think. But being inside of it, it's it can afford all of those things, and it doesn't have to close you off at all to the rest of the world. I think in many ways, for me at least, it's opened me more. The only thing it's closed me off a little more to is very secular people because they might have some prejudice about the
Mm.
religious life,
Hmm.
but it actually opened me so much more to people of other faith uh, because they understand. There's a type of understanding that that you just don't get otherwise, and there's no number of books you can read that will give you that. So
Yeah. Your your car analogy was making me think like maybe outside of the car you can go wherever you want and climb a mountain, and those are
yeah,
great experiences, but you can't go very far.
yeah,
And it's dangerous by yourself, I guess. I don't know. And then in the car, uh, you can go much further and uh, largely wherever you want, but there are roads, right? And so the roads
yeah,
are sort of those are the things that you can't go off the road, right? Or you can't go very far off the road.
yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
and I think if we can, beat this analogy to death, the
Sure.
I think the way it feels to me, because I hear what you're saying, and that there is wisdom in it. I think the concern is if we if we think there's somewhere to go and you have to take the roads to get there, but we keep parking the car at the first gas station or something, like we went one block and we took a right, and we do that every Sunday.
Yeah.
I think that is uh, that's my concern, to use the
Yeah,
analogy
yeah.
we're using.
Yeah, so your concern is that you're somehow limited, right? By
Well,
the tradition limits you.
what I want to say is, I think maybe because we this is the first time we met each other, so I think you're a little bit reading into my story, your story, and I don't deny the value of that. Like I'm having this conversation and having to reflect. Oh yeah, is it like
Yeah,
that? But I think
yeah,
the way that I see it is a little different than the limitations of the tradition. I'm afraid that the tradition isn't healthy, like it
mm,
isn't all that it could be. And so my tradition is Protestant, evangelical, like Jesus movement sort of stuff. And it's been my tradition for 4 years or
yeah,
something. So it's not
yeah,
like as, it's not as structurally sound as the Catholic Church, let's say. That's pretty substantial tradition. But then
sure,
the and I'll send you the passage from
yeah,
the Divine Conspiracy. But the rest of that book is so much about like putting into practice the things that Jesus says. And so I know what you're saying about freedom, and uh, even that I have the freedom to join any group of believers and participate within that community. With my left hemispheric disagreements put to
yeah,
the side, because it's more important that I have a community and that I participate within it.
yeah,
But I think it becomes difficult for me if the purpose and the design and the use, it's almost like the use of the tool of the church
sure.
is aimed at something other than what I think it could
Oh
be
yeah,
for. So it's a car, but we're using it as a house. It's like, okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, that's true, and I agree with you on that. I think it's definitely very similar to the hiccups that I had, and I'm also really not like I don't think there's necessarily a right way for you to go because sometimes there's so much more to learn outside than inside, right?
Mm.
That's definitely a truth that I think applies to a lot of people. But I will say, from my own experience, that if you want to change that use, it's easier to get inside of the car.
Mm.
Like,
To change it
if you
from
disagree with
within.
the way, yeah, I do believe that because some things you don't want to be destroyed. Like, for
Hmm.
example, the universities. I don't know how bad they are in the United States, but here they're not bad enough for me to say I'm gonna build an alternate system.
Hmm.
I feel the same way about the education system, where I started working in education because I profoundly believe that I don't want it to die. I want it to be rejuvenated. The reason that I couldn't see myself going to church because, and specifically Catholic Church, was because I thought there were, certain councils where they strayed too far from what it was supposed to be. But then what David made me realize, he says there's always been groups of people that whenever there was a change in institution, they'd be like, no, we're leaving. The problem with that for me, being in this phase of life where I'm seeking the center, is that that's fragmentation. It's not saying, oh, I'm gonna sit at a different, seat at the table. It's saying I'm gonna leave the table.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm just afraid of that. So I think the current state of churches isn't great. I think that a lot of them are based on a substance ontology inside of a materialistic uh, framework that we're trying to get out of. But the reason I came back to it, or to come to this tradition specifically, is because I just cannot accept the idea that it has to die completely before there can be a rejuvenation. I think that if that happens, we're too far gone.
Mm.
So in order to rebuild the center, we have to kind of, get inside of it. Criticizing, the best way to criticize is to create, and I think the best way to create at the moment is to help construct and reconstruct within the things
Yeah.
that are alive. And sometimes things need to die. Like we spoke about archaeology. I think perhaps modern archaeology, the way it is, needs to die.
Yeah.
But I think there is too much good in multiple traditions where I think we need to work from within.
Yeah.
But that's start of the conversation. Certainty. I don't have certainty about
Yeah.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna pretend like this is the way. It's like definitely not the way. Like my way is not the way. I know that for sure. But I'm just like I just this is just where I'm at the moment, and there is a profound peace to submission. That is what I'll say for people struggling. There is a profound peace to submission because your left hemisphere will kind of like when you really make a decision, it will kind of just turn off. I think that's what getting married is as well.
Yeah.
Just like all those options, you're like they're gone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's profoundly peaceful. And that's what I mean by freedom. Um, Freedom from just debilitating choice
Yeah.
or having to figure it out by yourself. That's the worst for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a uh, wise statement. I've heard that analogy before. Maybe it was you talking about it, but I think it was whatever. It was someone, and it's the perfect analogy. I think like it is so strange because okay, so it's a perfect analogy, but then it confuses with the biblical metaphor of the church as the bride, and the church is choosing Jesus, over and against all other options, and uh, but then in order to be the church, there's sort of like we must be united in that choice, but then in many other things, and uh, yeah, I think that submission um, submission to Christ and then to unity and love and patience and these things that you know those are the things that we need to identify as we are trying to aim for this submission. What are you submitting to? Are you submitting to certainty, right? Because I think that starts a whole
Yeah,
other problem.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be different people within and without the tradition who look at that differently. But uh, the James Filler, Orthodox,
Hmm.
Orthodox are funny because there there's quite a lot of certainty involved with Orthodoxy somehow. But
They play it
prefer
down though.
they play it down a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit. Like they pretend like they're more open than they are.
yeah.
But he was like, I think it was either him talking to his priest or just his own quote. But he said, "I know where the Holy Spirit is. I don't know where it is not."
Mm,
Meaning that he is not able to say the Holy Spirit isn't in this church or in this group of people that are in a different religion or this and this and this, but he knows where it is, and it's like Orthodox Church, but like take
right,
with that
right.
as but all
For
that
him,
said, being like, yeah, I don't see the Holy Spirit, being confined by a set of walls or something like that.
yeah.
So, and I don't like the way when people say, "Have you?" Like I got saved at this moment in time or something like
Hmm.
that. I'm like, it's just there's just no way it works like that for me. Like I can't accept that if you get baptized in a specific institution that oh now you're gonna go to heaven or something like that. Like
Yeah.
uh I'm too open or too
I want to say
convinced
realistic
otherwise.
or
Yeah,
like
yeah, I
connected to
guess so.
reality.
I guess so because you know, and it's difficult to not succumb to that tendency because it makes so much sense and the structure makes sense and the rituals make sense and then there's just clear cutoff points and there's within and without. But for me, like being a follower of Christ means that that you eat with everyone and that you really see everyone
Hmm.
as your brothers and sisters. And so there's definitely no limits to that.
That's really
But is
funny.
there a necessity to church? I think there might be. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's funny you said that. I was thinking of Peter as a within or without type of character in the gospel stories, and
Yeah.
you guys talked about this, like how he, is chosen, and Jesus says very nice things about him, and then in in a moment of clarity for Peter, he's like, I know exactly who you are. You're the Son of God. And 1 second later, at least that's the way the story is framed. 1 second later, he is Satan and a tool of Satan, and Jesus is reprimanding him for that. Like
Yeah.
that is the difficulty of discerning who is within and who is without. Like you
Yes.
you're both. You're everything. Like
Exactly.
Jesus is the in, and that's all we know. You know.
And that's Saint Peter is a he's almost an image of the church and maybe even the Catholic Church
Mm-hmm.
specifically. If like that's a great video essay of Jonathan Peugeot about this specific line being like that's where we can really go wrong because as a church, if you see your authority as the highest thing, that's when you've already kind of lost the plot. And if you think that people within Christianity are infallible, then you haven't read the Gospels because even his followers
Mm-hmm.
were straying all the time.
Yeah.
So it's messy stuff, man. Like uncertainty, it doesn't it doesn't apply.
Yeah. That you could say that again. Certainty
Yeah,
doesn't apply. Is I think that's one of the most difficult lessons for our culture, for just the way that we do things. Right. That's what a culture is. So
yeah, yeah.
I you were making me think. There's a concept called the hermeneutic cycle, and it's where you need to understand some of the concept in order to learn about it, right? You need to understand English in order to read a book about something, even a book about English. And the author Leslie Newbegin in Foolishness to the Greeks is describing the way that this works even in scientific paradigms. So he quoted from Thomas Kuhn's Revolutions, and the the concept of like you 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 I think he used the example of Einstein kind of doing away with most Newtonian things, but he needs the structure of Newton's physics in order to get to where he gets to. And I think that we are in an interesting place of rejuvenation. Even like the whole this little corner thing is largely unknown to most people listening to my podcast, except for the new TLC friends. Welcome. But that is, I think, a sign of this, right? Because one observation I've made is that there are a lot of people who are open, not everyone, because it's a big group of people, but there's a lot of people that come to this space with a great deal of willingness for other perspectives to be presented to them, to accept them, and all of these things. And that's a really good person to have. It's really weird when we all get together and do that. But then mostly because it's virtual, everybody just goes back to their own places. And so to participate within the space that God has given you to be is critical, I think, for the people, the type of people that are attracted to the corner, because not everybody cares about this stuff, even though it's important, I think, to many people and their lives. Philosophy is that way, where people don't have the time for it. They couldn't be bothered.
Mm.
But they do, they are affected. Everyone has a philosophy, right?
Yeah,
And I think that, that's sort of what I'm pulling away from this conversation is just like, I'm very people centered, so like it doesn't, whatever the group is, I participate to that within that in my own way, in my multiplicitous way. Like I'm a point of that group, and there should be, like 10, 100 other points, and they get to be who they are. And then we all need to
Yeah.
figure out how to make it work. How can we get this car on the road heading in that direction and not pull over
Yeah.
in the same spot every time? So I
Yeah.
just think that we're in that rejuvenation sort of space. People have been praying for revival. I don't know in the Netherlands, but in America, that's like a big deal. Like,
Oh,
and I think it's that. I think we're on the cusp, or it's happening in this very strange way because I don't know. I guess maybe in America, everything turns over so fast. It almost feels like revival, but it's not. It's like reinvention, like what you were saying, they're making a new car. We're making
yeah.
something completely different.
Yeah.
But we kind of need to have that organic revitalization, I think, and it's happening. So that's good. It's good that it's happening.
Yeah.
I guess we could
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
pray that we
Sometimes,
get out of the way.
yeah. 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 You're right. Sometimes you also forget, like, if you believe that goodness is at the foundation of the world and love is at the foundation of the world, then things will come to a
Mm,
good place, right?
mm,
And that, like, I forget this all the time in my daily life.
yeah.
And then I sit back, someone I really looked up to before well, I still look up to him, but he's dead. Before he passed away, was a thinker that uh, was asked a question once, and the question went as follows, like, would it be, would it make sense to kind of thank for evil, to be
Mm,
grateful that evil exists? And he said, in a way, yes, because that's without evil, like without the challenge, without all the things that make us good, without the pressure that creates diamonds, without the darkness that lets light shine, wouldn't all be there. So I think we shouldn't get too demoralized sometimes because a lot of it today is, demoralizing. The conversation is demoralizing, whether it's political, whether it's societal, whether we're speaking about health or prospects of world wars and such things. Part of the Christian and overall the religious message is like, don't absolutize this existence that you're in at the moment. And that includes the state of, the church with its four walls. The church is supposed to be an instrument through which we can get closer to God and closer to teachings that make us wiser. But the reality that's hidden underneath all of that, that's maybe not as hidden as we think it is completely timeless and spaceless
mm-hmm,
and 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 if you forget that for too long, you might get stuck in the game.
mm,
That's dangerous stuff. Uh, I'm not saying that what we're experiencing now isn't reality. It definitely is. But there's so much more that we often forget about, that I'd like to just remember every day. And I think partially prayer is that.
mm,
Partially prayer is that to see, okay, like if you haven't been doing well, to have something to reach out to ask, to thank, to be like, I know it's tough at the moment, but show me how to get to a better place. Because I trust there is one.
mm-hmm.
And there's a timeless and a spaceless one that's always really there underneath the surface, even when your life's in absolute shambles. It's there, and I think it's often people whose lives are in shambles that get convictions that are stronger than anyone else's because they've been shown something, maybe a seed. Maybe it's just a seed that they've been shown, or maybe it's just a peek behind the curtain that says, "You- you're gonna be all right."
Yeah,
You can trust in that.
yeah,
But don't lose faith. Don't lose faith. That's
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. We just have been talking about certainty a little, and I think that I had this revelation a couple months ago that the people that are the most dogmatic are the people that believe their propositions the least. And that's fascinating because, at least in America, we have like recent history of the fundamentalists versus the modernists. And it's super interesting how that has shaped different expressions of the church. But even just people, I think people sort of cling to different versions of things, and that's dispositional, right? People are more liberal or conservative by personality, and then they this is the way that they learn to process the world, you know. And so anyway, the certainty thing always comes off as so, it makes me back away. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I'm definitely more on the like artist weirdo side of that conversation. I'm not even that artsy. It's just like that's I guess the openness, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
as soon as you are certain, I'm squeamish about that.
Yes.
And uh but those people are even less certain, I think, than I am through very difficult things in my life that have laid the foundation. This is thankful for evil that have
Yeah.
laid the foundation for my life. My relationship with Jesus is founded on my failure and his acceptance of me and transformation of me. And those things are irrefutable, and I refute them daily, right? Like you said, I forget these things, but
Yeah.
those are the anchor point, and not necessarily the things, the doctrines, the traditions, but to the extent that we can maybe participate in community that is committed to re-anchoring ourselves. I think that, like, of course, any of the cliche things that, cliche, traditional ritual things that we do are designed to do that, to recenter and re-anchor us in that space where at our darkest and lowest points, Jesus was the light, and he was with us, and he overcame, and all of the things that are in the songs on the radio. It's like that. That's just they're true, and so to truly live them, it's like what you said about that. That hits me. I am definitely a listener, and I listen to podcasts and they wash over me and nothing happens in one ear and out the other. And I think these things, but do I act on them? Do I believe them? I think that's the difference, right? If I believed it, then I would do it.
Yeah.
And I think that, uh, yeah, I think that's why I like talking to the people from the corner. And then that's also the journey that I'm on to figure out how to participate in people's real lives, and share these things, because I think that's where it starts to count. It starts to be important
Yeah.
or real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Multiple things came up for me from what you just said. Uh, Integration is one near the end there. We're talking, we're listening, we're talking, we're listening. Are we integrating? Are we
Mm.
applying? Are we fully living? Are we embodying more than anything?
Hmm.
I think
That's
there is a
why the podcast is named Insight Incorporated. It's because you,
lovely.
you need to embody it.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to body, you need to integrate. I think uh the podcast space is amazing. I'm really happy that it exists. I'm really happy to participate in it. But I'm always a little worried when I see people on every single live stream, this little corner phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're participating digitally in everything that comes around, talking about higher theological things and such things. But how does this not contradict a little bit what you're doing here? Like sometimes you really just need to log off and kind of uh, live life and actually, help your community out and help someone move and such things. I think this little corner, and even something like estuary, which I don't know if a lot of your listeners will be familiar with, but it's a type of conversation that you have to speak about things that are meaningful to you, things that are important to you with a group of people that are also interested in that. I see it as tools to get somewhere else, like to
Hmm.
get to a place where your life is just integrated enough that you don't have to reflect on everything all the time. You know?
Yeah.
You know, but it
What
is
a what a
but
place.
yeah, what a place. But it's still good. Like it has its place for sure. That's why I love doing it and I still do it. For one, to explore ideas, to be curious, to learn from other people. Like there's nothing that taught me more as a medium than podcasting has. Because it's different to like speak about something than to just read about it or listen
Yeah.
to it. So I think actually that's why I like the phenomenon of smaller channels that interact with one another and such things because it is already embodying in a way.
Hmm.
But I think it's in one step. And I think the next step is like apply this spirit of curiosity, play, connection to your everyday life, you
Hmm.
know. Have these level of depth conversations with your neighbors, your family members, your colleagues or whatever, because that's when things will start aligning. I think that's how we're really gonna connect to each other and to something higher. Um, and then what I also came up to me when we spoke about certainty and faith is that it's actually McGilchrist that first made me realize that faith doesn't have a lot to do with certainty. Uh, Faith can't be certainty, actually,
Mm.
but it can be profoundly feeling like trust. But trust is not certainty. Trust is something that you can build over time.
Yeah.
You can have uh, confidence in. So I have confidence in my faith in Christ and in God. Uh, but am I certain about it? No, because I'm a human being. You know, Jesus' disciples weren't certain enough to kind of not betray him at
Yeah.
the last minute. Like that shows you're not certain. You're absolutely not certain. And we're not certain. And it's okay to admit that. Faith is something else. And it's not just belief, because otherwise we would all be atheists,
Hmm.
um, or something else. I'm not atheist actually. But you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
something else. And it makes it much more powerful because if you were certain that about God and about Jesus and about whatever religion you're in or about this and this and this and this, there wouldn't be the challenge. I don't think. There wouldn't be as many of the lessons. There would just be like obviousness,
Yeah.
less adventure for sure.
Yes. Yes.
I like the adventure bit of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that
Wherever the truth will take you, right?
right. Right. Yeah, no. I have a son. He just turned one, and um, and a wife, and uh, and we were just living our lives, trusting Jesus and doing things, and then she was like, "I think it's time to have kids," and I was like, "Whew, it's definitely not time to have kids," and but then I prayed about it and for a while and came to that same conclusion, and that was what convinced me was the adventure aspect of it. It was a it was an obvious no, and in many ways it still is. Our life isn't together, in the way that I think is just pretty culturally typical. People expect that you would have a certain number of things in place that we don't have in place, and yet this year, his first year, has been. I started my podcast in February, and I've never worked harder in my life, and I have never had more outward focused effort, work in my life, focused on other something other than myself. And all of these things I couldn't have told you. It even happened the year leading up when my wife was pregnant. I was spiritually changed, and maybe it's physical. I don't know, but the the change occurred before he was present in the world, and and it is profound. I recommend it to everyone. Like, yeah, do it. You'll figure it out. You will, and you'll sacrifice things, and maybe you did it too soon to have those other things in your life, but you will never remember them. Those are not the things that your life is for. And so I think that adventure, we even incorporated it in his name, and it's the point, like that's what
Nice.
this is. And so certainty is something I often find myself praying for and have to stop and say, wait, no, I don't want that. I know I don't want that, but it's hard in the
Yeah.
moment, to lack
Yeah.
it. And so to all of the
Yeah.
people that I've been criticizing today, it's like, I'm sorry. I'm one of you, um,
Yeah.
I see the appeal.
Yeah. We both are.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your son. That's just wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm I'm impressed that you've been able to take that leap, to both of you, and
Yeah,
it is a big one, that's for sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
Um, I think we can wrap up here soon. I had this quote. I read a Brene Brown book. I don't know if you know who she
Yeah.
is. Uh,
Yeah, I do.
so I actually can't remember which one this is from, but she quotes a guy who describes trust as choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. And I think that that is key. It's critical.
Could you repeat it one more time?
Yes. Um, Trust is choosing to risk make. Sorry, I'm going to read the whole thing again.
Mm.
Trust is choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That's
and
a good one.
I think that, yeah, that lies at all the heart of all of relationship. And well, you've talked to Filler. It's like relationship lies at the heart of everything, and so then
Yeah.
trust is key.
Trust is key.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful spot to end it.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Lucas.
much, Ian. This has
Yes,
been wonderful. I
I
hope
really enjoyed it.
to speak again. I'd like to get to know you a bit better. I wasn't sure how appropriate it would be if I ask you questions, given that it's your interview,
Oh,
but I'd
yes.
love to do a bit more of that later on. So if you'd ever like to come on, I'd be
Yeah,
honored to have you.
absolutely. That'd be great.
All
Uh,
right.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Have a good day.
I'll edit it there. I, yeah, I will do that anytime you'd like. The, I kept wanting to ask you questions about your dad too. And I wanted to talk to your brother about, uh, Nietzsche and some other stuff like that. So, I think that maybe I'll come on your channel and then you can make the introductions or something.
Yeah, sure. You should talk to them, man. My
Yeah,
dad would be happy to talk. I can contact you.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Good, man.
yeah, thanks so much. This will be going up this Monday. So,
Good. You work fast. That's nice.
yes, yeah.
That's
I
good.
It's more like laziness. We had some episodes that were banked, and then I had to use them all. I didn't do it for like a month, and then anyway, yeah, you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
All right, Ian.
Have a good night.
I will speak to you soon. Have a good day,
Yes,
I
thank you.
think. Yeah.
Bye
All
bye.
right. See you.